It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
The second thing that was discussed this morning, will the public, will the media be able to see video of these freak-offs?
He sold us the dream, a music mogul, a kingmaker, a billionaire with a golden touch. For years, Diddy was untouchable, his rise a symbol of ambition, hustle, and swagger. But in one courtroom, all of that shattered. As Cassie Ventura took the stand and began to speak, the myth of Diddy crumbled in real time, the allegations jaw-dropping, the evidence devastating. And Diddy's reaction, unlike anything the public has ever seen, this isn't just a courtroom drama, it's the possible collapse of one of music's biggest empires. And what unfolded inside that room, it might just change everything you thought you knew about hip-hop's biggest boss. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and drop your thoughts in the comments about day 2 of Diddy's trial. We're bringing you daily updates, so stay tuned. We know what's next.
The freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah. She's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh, no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
They called him a mogul, a kingmaker, the man who turned hip-hop into a billion-dollar business. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just successful, he was untouchable. He built empires, launched careers, walked red carpets with Hollywood's elite, and never once let the mask slip. But inside a packed courtroom yesterday, everything changed. When Cassie Ventura, the woman who once stood quietly by his side, took the witness stand, the illusion shattered. Diddy didn't look like a power player anymore. He didn't look like a billionaire mogul. He looked rattled, panicked, his confident facade cracked with every word Cassie said. And as she began to detail the dark reality, she says she lived behind closed doors. Even the most seasoned courtroom reporters sat frozen. No one expected what came next, not the press, not the fans, and certainly not Diddy. This wasn't just testimony, it was a reckoning.
She did say these freak-offs lasted between 1 and 4 days, and it would take her an equal amount of time to get her body recovered, to rehydrate, to rest.
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot about the nature of Cassie's relationship with Diddy.
Cassie Ventura just named Christina Korm as keeping tabs on her for Diddy.
She was just 19, a fresh-faced model with dreams of making it in music. He was already a multi-millionaire, a titan in the industry with connections in every corner of entertainment. When Cassie Ventura met Diddy, the power imbalance was immediate, and according to her, he knew exactly how to use it. At first, the control looked subtle. A text here, a surprise visit there, a quiet question about where she'd been and with whom, but soon it escalated. Cassie testified that Diddy demanded to know her whereabouts at all times, showing up unannounced if she stepped out without him. He allegedly sabotaged her career behind the scenes, shelving projects, blocking collaborations, and threatening to ruin anyone who tried to work with her. She told the court he even installed tracking software on her phone so he always knew where she was. The control wasn't just emotional, it was digital, strategic, suffocating. One by one, she claimed, he isolated her from friends, from collaborators, from any voice that might have said, leave, until he was the only voice left. It wasn't a relationship, it was domination dressed up as mentorship, hidden behind the glitz of fame. And yesterday, in a courtroom packed with reporters and legal heavyweights, Cassie pulled back the curtain on all of it, and Diddy, he couldn't stop her.
2 witnesses were called today, including a former security officer at the hotel, where Diddy is seen on video attacking Ventura brutally. You remember that video back in 2016. The prosecutors played the video. The witness testified that Diddy tried to pay him off with a giant wad of cash. The day's second witness was a male escort. This is where it really got very juicy, who says that he was paid by Diddy numerous times to have sex with Cassie while Diddy sat there in the corner, masturbating, and watched. He says he once saw Diddy throw a liquor bottle at Cassie and heard him beating her in another room.
When Diddy walked into the courtroom that morning, he looked exactly like the mogul the world knew. Tailored suit, crisp tie, flanked by a team of high-powered attorneys. He nodded to familiar faces, even managed a few smiles. To anyone watching, it looked like business as usual. But that confidence didn't last long. Within 30 minutes of Cassie taking the stand, the shift was undeniable. The swagger vanished. The relaxed posture stiffened. His face, usually unreadable, always in control, began to twitch under pressure. Cassie hadn't even gotten to the worst parts yet, but already Diddy was fidgeting with his tie, his cufflinks, his hands. He scribbled frantic notes and passed them to his lawyers so rapidly that one of them had to physically signal him to slow down. Well, courtroom reporters later said it was like watching someone realize for the first time that they weren't in control of the story anymore. His reactions weren't subtle, and the jury saw everything. The whispering, the head shaking, the barely concealed disbelief. This wasn't just about Cassie's words, it was about how visibly unprepared Diddy was to hear them in front of the world. For a man who built an entire legacy on maintaining the upper hand, the courtroom was starting to feel like the one place he had.
Emily Johnson actually said that Cassie did choke on the urine of an escort when Diddy forced this escort to allegedly urinate in her mouth. They did say inner circle numerous times, I believe, really trying to amplify the RICO charges. Diddy couldn't have done all of these crimes without his inner circle, right? Without his bodyguard, without his driver, without his assistant. They talked about alleged kidnappings. That one time he kidnapped his assistant to go and try to find Cassie when he thought Cassie was cheating. I mean, it was wild. I feel like I could go on forever, but I won't. At a certain point, wasn't able to perform for Diddy and Cassie. He got erectile dysfunction because of what he saw. He said he saw Diddy at one point after an encounter.
I thought I was going to die that night. That's what Cassie told the courtroom, her voice barely above a whisper, but loud enough to send chills down every spine in the room. The incident she was about to describe hadn't been in any prior filings. Not in the press, not even in the gossip blogs. It was something she'd kept buried for years out of fear. Fear of Diddy, fear for her career, fear that no one would believe her over someone so powerful. But now on the witness stand, she wasn't holding anything back. According to Cassie, it happened at the Four Seasons Hotel after what started as a typical industry after-party. Diddy became enraged after seeing her talking to another music executive. She described how his expression darkened, how he grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks, all while keeping a fake smile on his face in front of other guests. She said he dragged her through the hotel lobby toward the elevators, and when a security guard approached, he backed off the moment he recognized Diddy. He didn't even ask if I was okay, she testified.
Dragged Cassie by the hair from her computer seat all the way back to her bedroom while she was kicking and screaming and crying. And after she apologized and came out, he said that Diddy said, okay, you guys want to continue? And he couldn't perform. And that was it. From there, he could not perform after that. And he saw Diddy abuse Cassie 2 or 3 more times after that as well. And this is a muscular guy. He was 41 years old, a bit smaller, but again, he seemed incredibly affected by what he saw.
And was there, just quickly, Lauren, was there a point where he talked about, because I was trying to follow the blogs, again, it's hard, you were in there, it's difficult for us on the outside. Did he talk about Cassie at one point being under the influence of drugs to the point that she was slumped over, and Diddy still wanted him to have sex with her?
Then came the photos. Cassie had taken them herself the next morning. Bruises on her arms, a split lip, redness around her neck, blurry bathroom mirror shots, raw and unfiltered. And somehow that made them even more horrifying. Diddy's legal team fought hard to keep those images out of court, but the judge overruled every objection. As the pictures appeared on screen, the jury's reaction was instant. One woman covered her mouth in shock. Two male jurors turned away. A third furiously scribbled notes, her hand visibly trembling. The courtroom had been holding its breath. But now everyone knew this wasn't just tabloid drama. This was something far darker. And for the first time, it looked like Diddy's empire might not survive it. And the transformation wasn't instant. It was gradual, like a mask slipping inch by inch. But by the end of Cassie's testimony that afternoon, there was no mistaking it. Diddy was no longer the man who walked into that courtroom hours earlier. The smooth-talking mogul, the polished media figure, the untouchable king of hip-hop gone. In his place was someone raw, reactive, and visibly losing control.
Cassie told the jury that Diddy forced her into drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts while he watched, sometimes sitting in the corner and masturbating. Through tears, she said she took drugs to numb herself, ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, all of it allegedly supplied by Diddy. She said the freak-offs included as many as 4 male escorts at once, and typically lasted 36 to 72 hours. The longest, she said, the longest freak-off that she says she was forced to perform in lasted 4 days. She said they took place around the world, from New York to Miami to Spain, to even Turks and Caicos. And at every stop, Cassie said the hotel rooms were stocked by Diddy's staff with baby oil, condoms, and drugs. And she says that these hotel rooms, this is disgusting, the hotel rooms were left covered in baby oil and covered in blood and covered in urine. Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless. But she said she couldn't say no because she says Diddy threatened to release videos of the freak-offs with her.
As Cassie detailed the most violent moments of their relationship being pushed downstairs, choked until she nearly blacked out, Diddy began to physically shrink into his chair. His composure cracked first in the small ways, shaking his head, whispering harshly to his attorneys, mouthing, "That's not true," every time a new allegation landed. But soon those cracks widened. At one point, when Cassie brought up an incident at Diddy's Hamptons house, he slammed his hand on the table so hard the sound echoed through the courtroom. The judge immediately stopped the proceedings. "Mr. Combs, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom," she warned. It was a stunning moment, one of the most powerful figures in music history being threatened with expulsion like a disruptive child. His legal team looked panicked. One lawyer kept placing a hand on Diddy's arm to calm him down. Another reportedly passed him a note that read in all caps, "Stay calm." But it wasn't working. The more Cassie spoke, the more unglued Diddy became. And the jury, they were watching everything, every reaction, every twitch, every slip. He seemed to forget he wasn't in control anymore. This wasn't a music video or a press conference. He couldn't cut the camera, couldn't spin the story, couldn't hide behind PR. Cassie had the floor now, and for once, Diddy had no say in the edit.
We'll repeat that she said on the stand, at one point she said that a male escort had urinated in her mouth and she actually choked on it. And it was at that point someone in the courtroom actually had to walk out of the door there while, Diddy sat at the defense table listening on here. But as she was describing these events where she said that, there were multiple male escorts that were happening at one time, these freak-offs would happen for 2, 3, the longest 4 days at a time. And control is the word we need to talk about. That is what prosecutors really laid out. And you heard Cassie describe how every action during these freak-offs, which were between her and male escorts, not necessarily between her and her boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs, he sat off to the side really directing things according to her and masturbating along with what he wanted to see. But he was in control, she said, of exactly how they did everything, from the platform shoes that she needed to wear, the clothes that she needed to wear occasionally, masks, wigs, whether or not the male escort could ejaculate, where he could ejaculate. Everything, she said, was controlled by him. Mind you, Brian, his children, 6 children, are in the courtroom at this point listening to all of this. And the jury was picked knowing that they needed a certain level of comfort to hear these types of descriptions. It was very emotional and really tough to hear, Brian.
But the real shock wasn't just what she had, it was who else was in the messages. Cassie told the court she had texts from other celebrities, big name, people who had been in Diddy's circle, who had seen things behind the scenes and reached out to her afterward. These weren't vague allegations, these were first-hand reactions from people the public knows by name. A rapper famous for collaborating with Diddy had texted Cassie after a Grammy after-party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." A female pop star had written, "I've known him for 15 years, and I've never seen him act like that. Please call me." And then there was the longtime producer who had worked on some of Diddy's biggest hits. His message read, "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." As these messages were projected onto the courtroom screens, the silence was deafening. Reporters stopped typing. Jurors leaned forward. Diddy's face reportedly drained of color. His legal team erupted in objections, demanding the messages be thrown out. The judge reviewed them privately, then returned with a single ruling: they stay.
We thought what we saw in that awful video from the Intercontinental was bad. But to hear the actual graphic details of what Cassie and others endured day after day for years is just completely heartbreaking. And to hear the sex worker actually try to offer her aid when, she was being beaten, and literally she went to him for solace, as opposed to the person who supposedly loves and cares about her. She had to jump into the arms of a sex worker, and he was literally like, "This is not okay. You need to leave this relationship." And she did, unfortunately, what so many survivors do, which is, "I'm okay, it's gonna be okay, basically I can handle this." And the reality is she really needed to get out because she was being violated and degraded in so many different ways. And my heart just breaks for her so much.
Melba, you're so right. Ours do as well. What's it going to be like today when she is perhaps called? We think that she's going to be witness number 3. We have a clip where we caught up with her lawyer outside of the courthouse on Monday. Let's take a quick look.
How is Cassie? Is she emotional? Is she feeling okay with this? Is she nervous?
She's ready.
She is ready. She's also pregnant, God bless her, and visibly pregnant too. So in the later stages of her pregnancy.
But it didn't stop there. Cassie's lawyer presented messages from Diddy himself, ones no PR team could explain away. "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink." Another one. "Whatever you need to make this right. New car, new apartment, just say the word." Then came the most damning of all. "My lawyer can draw up the paperwork. $2 million clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." These weren't just texts, they were a paper trail, a glimpse behind the curtain of a man who built his image on control. And as these messages hit the screen, something else happened. The people who came in with Diddy, his entourage, his supporters, his loyalists, started leaving quietly, one by one, as if the weight of the evidence was too much even for them to sit through. By the time that segment of the testimony ended, Diddy was sitting alone at his table. The king who once commanded rooms now looked like a man abandoned by his own core.
6th floor.
When he got to the floor, he noticed that there was glass on the floor, that the vase and the flowers were broken.
The security guard described going back to Diddy's hotel room and standing in the doorway while Ventura grabbed her things. Inside, another man sitting at the corner of the bed.
So from the very start, the first witness brings the jury into that hallway where he said Sean Combs looked at him with a devilish stare and Cassie Ventura had a purple eye.
Sean Combs tried to offer him money, to give him money to make this go away, and he said he wouldn't accept the money.
By the end of the day, the transformation was complete. The man who strutted into the courtroom surrounded by power suits, whispers of influence, and the aura of untouchability now sat nearly alone. Shoulders hunched, tie loosened, eyes down. One by one, the people who had flanked him that morning, his entourage, his so-called inner circle, had quietly slipped out of the room, as if the gravity of what was unfolding everything had finally become too much. Only his lawyers remained, and even they looked drained from hours of scrambling to contain a narrative that was spinning out of control. Diddy didn't speak. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't perform. The mask he had worn for decades, unshakable, polished, always in control, was gone. What was left was a man staring down the wreckage of everything he had built. And worse, knowing the world was watching. The courtroom that had once felt like another stage now felt more like a spotlight, one that exposed every flaw, every contradiction, every crack in the story he had spent years perfecting.
Those freak-offs. She says that she was just 22 years old, had just turned 22 when Combs first proposed to her those drug-fueled sex marathons with escorts. She says eventually, though, they became almost weekly, and that they lasted on average, as you said, about 2 to 3 days, the longest one 4 days, and that she stayed awake by drugs that she says Combs gave to her, including ecstasy, cocaine, and She testified that those freak-offs made her feel dirty and worthless, but that she felt like she did not have a choice but to participate because she says Combs would become violent with her. As you pointed out, she says that he would bash her in the head, kick and drag her, and that she didn't know what would happen if she didn't do what he wanted her to do. She told the jury that she tried to express her feelings about participating, but in at least one text message shown to the jury, Combs told her to make it happen anyway.
But this wasn't just about losing a case, it was about losing something bigger. The myth, the legend, the legacy. Cassie hadn't just told her story, she had flipped the power dynamic on its head. And in doing so, she may have rewritten how the world remembers Sean Diddy Combs. As court adjourned for the day, there was no entourage waiting at the doors. No cameras shouting his name with admiration. Just the quiet, chilling reality that the empire might already be in free fall, and the man at its center was finally starting to realize it. The question now isn't whether Diddy can win this case, it's whether his legacy can survive it. After everything revealed in just one day of testimony, the empire he built on image, influence, and silence is teetering. And this might only be the beginning. Cassie's story has opened the floodgates, and there are whispers, quiet now, but growing louder, of others who might come forward. More names, more receipts, more stories that the public was never meant to hear. The courtroom has become a stage where the truth, long buried under NDAs, luxury, and status, is clawing its way to the surface. Let me know what you guys think about all this below. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.